Thank you, Senator Reed. Senator McCain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Secretary Panetta, I join with all others in thanking you for your many years of service. It's been an honor to have known you and appreciate your leadership of the Department of Defense, and I'm sure you will continue to contribute in the future, and we will miss you. General Dempsey, I was just going over your written statement, and I have to admit it's one of the more bizarre statements that I have ever seen in my years in this committee. When you're talking about the Benghazi issue, you say, we positioned our forces in a way that was informed by and consistent with available threat estimates. Then you go on to say our military was appropriately responsive, even though 7 hours passed and 2 Americans died at the end of that. Then you go on and say, we did what our posture and capabilities allowed. There's a base at Ceuta Bay, Crete, General. There's a base there. It's about an hour-and-a-half flight by a, I've forgotten the kind of plane that I took when I went to Benghazi. There was, including in all of those factors on that board there was a message sent, an urgent message sent back to the State Department on August 15th that, quote, the consulate could not withstand a sustained attack on the consulate. It was September 11th. I will argue that there was no outpost in all of our diplomatic corps that had that sequence of events, these warnings, including many warnings from our ambassador about the lack of security, including even a message that was found in the rubble of the consulate by a CNN reporter weeks later. So for you to testify that our posture did not allow a rapid response, our posture was not there because we didn't take into account the threats to that consulate, and that's why 4 Americans died. We could have placed forces there. We could have had aircraft and other capabilities as short distance away as Ceuta Bay, Crete. So for you to testify before this committee that they were consistent with available threat estimates is simply false. That our military was appropriately responsive. What would have been an inappropriate response, since no forces arrived there until well after these murders took place, and obviously your capabilities allowed you to be positioned to intervene very shortly. So, and finally, all of this is a result of the so-called light footprint. After Gaddafi fell, many of us made it very clear that they needed our help, secure the arms caches, help them secure their borders, a lot of technical assistance, but the light footprint we did not provide. So it was almost predictable, almost, maybe not predictable, that bad things were going to happen in Libya, because here was a fledgling government that had never governed before without the assistance that we could have provided them with. I begged you, Secretary Panetta, for example, to send a hospital ship over there to help treat their 30,000 wounded. What did we do? We sent a couple to hospitals in the United States of America. So I'll be glad to hear your response, General Dempsey, as to how the available threat estimates you were informed by, how our military was appropriately responsive since 4 people died 7 hours later, with the hundreds of airplanes, ships, planes, and men and women who are serving available in that part of the world, and how did you do what your posture and capabilities allowed?
Thank you, Senator. Let me begin by saying I stand by my testimony, your dispute of it notwithstanding, but I would like to say that
perhaps you can give me some facts that would substantiate it.
I will, Senator. We base our response on the combined effects of what we get from the intelligence community, and that's the network of intel agencies, as well, importantly, based on what we get from the State Department and the chief of mission and chief of station in the country.
Did you ever get the message that said they could not withstand a sustained attack on the consulate?
I was tracking that intelligence. I was tracking through General
Did you receive that information?
I did, and I saw it.
So it didn't bother you?
It bothered me a great deal, but
Then
we
why
never
didn't you
received
put forces
a request.
in place to be ready to respond?
Because we never received a request to do so, number one. And number two,
You never heard of Ambassador Stevens' repeated warnings about the lack
I
of
had, sir,
security?
through General Ham, but we never received a request for support from the State Department, which would have allowed us to put
So
forces
it's the
on
State
the ground.
Department's fault.
I'm not blaming the State Department. I'm sure they had their own
Who would you
assessment.
blame?
Sorry, sir?
Who is responsible then? It was
Well,
clear that an assessment was made that they could not withstand a sustained attack on the consulate, with it being September 11th and many other indications that are on that board over there,
right,
of various attacks that have already taken place.
I stand by the report of the Accountability Review Board, but I would also say, Senator, I was also concerned at that time with Sana'a in Yemen, Khartoum, Islamabad, Peshawar, Kabul, Baghdad. We had some pretty significant intel threat streams against those places as well.
I've seen some of those estimates, and none of them rose to the level of the threat in Benghazi. Did they rise to that level, that they could not withstand a sustained attack?
Yes, they were.
They did?
Yes, they did.
Well, so basically, you're saying what our postures and our capabilities allowed. You did what our capabilities allowed. We didn't have the capability to station forces as short as go to Suda Bay, Crete.
Well, there were.
Did we have those capabilities?
We do have those capabilities, but even those.
But we didn't use those capabilities.
Well, sir, based on time, distance, and alert posture, as I said to Senator Reid a moment ago, they wouldn't have gotten there in time.
It's an hour-and-a-half flight, General, if you had them based there at Suda Bay, Crete. And finally, I would ask again, both of you, what I asked you last March when 7,500 citizens of Syria had been killed. It's now up to 60,000. How many more have to die before you recommend military action? And did you support the recommendation by Secretary of State, then Secretary of State Clinton, and then head of CIA, General Petraeus, that we provide weapons to the resistance in Syria? Did you support that?
We did.
You did support that?
We did.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator Udall?